What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Divine Gift Development. I'm Dan Gruen. Thank you so much for being here, all you beautiful souls, all you star seeds, light workers, empaths, way showers, torch bearers, witches, warlocks, all the like. You're all welcome here. Everybody's welcome here. This is an inclusive space. This is a space focused on healing ourselves, healing the collective, empowerment, inspiration, overcoming fear so that we can pursue our dreams and manifest our desires. Is there such a thing as a toxic person? No. There is no such thing as a toxic person. There is toxic behavior, but the person, the soul, is not toxic. You might say that the person, since the word person comes from persona, which means mask, the toxic behavior comes out in the person, in the identity, in the ego. But the soul, the spirit, the being is not toxic. What's toxic is the behavior, the ego, the filter through which the soul is attempting to communicate and express. So for example, I got into an argument with my mom yesterday. When I've talked to my siblings in the past, they might say something like, I can't deal with Mom because she's toxic. My mom's not toxic. I know my mom. I love my mom. She loves me. She cares about me more than anything in the world. I know how much she cares about me. And it's funny because the argument had a lot to do with whether or not we actually cared about each other and whether or not our actions were showing that. I think it's obvious from our actions that we care about each other. In fact, if we didn't care about each other, we wouldn't fight. The fact that we fight is because we care about each other. We care about each other enough to fight for each other. It seems toxic at the time because I hate it. There's nothing in life I hate more than when my mom and I are fighting. It's just the worst. But rather than expecting an apology from her like I have in the past, I've come to the point where I actually thank her, once I stop being grumpy and irritated and I wake up to my higher nature and my higher self and remember who I really am, then I thank her. I'm like, thank you, Mom. Thank you for caring so much about me to have this fight. Neither of us, when we get in these heated arguments, are able to control our temperament, and we can get very critical. And it seems toxic because it sucks, but it's not. It's actually love in disguise. That's just an example. You could take another example of, say, somebody drinking all the time. Well, that might seem toxic to be around someone who's an alcoholic because the alcohol is a toxin. It's an intoxicant. So there's something toxic about that. But that doesn't make the person a toxic being or a toxic soul. It just means they have an addiction. And a lot of people have addictions, I talk a lot about Alan Watts because I love Alan Watts. He was a drinker. He drank. You could say that's bad. You could say he probably drank too much. But he's still amazing. He still gives amazing lectures. He's still brought Buddhism to the West. And he's incredible, in my opinion. Listening to him, I'm like, wow, look at the body of knowledge he's been able to condense into his lectures. And he even says in his lectures that a lot of times when people find a spiritual master, when they find out that the spiritual master smokes cigarettes or drinks or has a girlfriend, they're completely scandalized and they're like, this guy, he's got a temperament and he's just like everybody else. He's no better than me. Well, that's what you're supposed to figure out. That's what you're supposed to realize, is that there is no one who's better than you or worse than you, and it's not about being better or worse. It's about realizing that nobody's perfect, or another way to say it is we're all perfect despite the fact that we have perceived imperfections. Alan Watts even says, if a human being didn't have a few vices, he'd probably cease to exist, or she would cease to exist, because you need something like that to keep you grounded in reality. Otherwise, you might just float off. We all sometimes need a little bit of that. There's such an obsession with purity. Purity is great, but sometimes it's those impurities in life that we love the most. That's why they're addicting. We get something out of it. It doesn't make us a bad person. And people have so much guilt. They get so down on themselves. They think that they're toxic. They think that they're bad. They think there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just like everybody else. It's not about being better than everybody else. You're not worse than anybody else. Those people that you think are toxic, you're isolating yourselves from them because you're afraid that their toxicity is going to get on you somehow. And it's that fear of toxic people that's actually creating distrust and isolation and pushing us farther away from each other. If we could accept one another, flaws and all, imperfections and all, that's how you create heaven on earth. And that's how you get past that stuff too and start creating more positive experiences with people and finding the love and experiencing that. It's just be like, you know what? Thank you for being the way you are. I don't need you to change for me. Let's accept each other the way we are. Let's stop labeling each other as toxic because it's demeaning and it's hurtful to do that. And let's just understand that, everyone's doing their best. My mom's doing her best. I know that. I know everything she does comes from a place of caring and love, even though it may come out in a compulsive way, because we all have our compulsions too. It's just part of the human experience, part of the human condition. So there's no such thing as a toxic person. There is such thing as toxic behavior. No one's trying to pretend that they're perfect. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm perfect. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm better than you. I don't think I'm better than you. I've worked on my public speaking, you could say, my self-expression. I'm working on opening the throat chakra, you could say. Finding my voice, expressing myself. That's a part of me I'm working on so that I can do this. But I don't think I'm better than you. Just because I get good at that doesn't make me better than you. Nothing is ever going to make me better than anybody else. I'm never going to think I'm better than other people. And I catch myself when I start being down on myself and thinking that other people are better than me because they're farther along than I am. Just because they're farther along doesn't make them better than me. They're just farther along. I'm here in my process. I'm realizing I am absolutely capable of having integrity, standing in my truth, speaking, keeping moving forward, even though it's been really hard. And a lot of times I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to gain a following? When is anybody ever going to care what I have to say? When is anyone ever going to listen to me? But I had to get over being down on myself and feeling like I was the toxic person. There's something wrong with me. All the guilt that I had to let all that go. The healing that I had came from realizing that there's nothing wrong with me to begin with. So in conclusion, by understanding that toxic behavior is not the same thing as the human being that you're interacting with, and that allows for forgiveness. We can forgive ourselves, we can forgive other people, and forgiveness is really the doorway to peace in our hearts. And forgiveness is not condoning toxic behavior. It's simply giving as we did before through our hearts. Doesn't mean you have to tolerate anything that seems intolerable to you, but you can find peace, particularly when you forgive yourself, because I find that when we forgive ourselves, then we have a greater capacity to forgive other people. When we understand ourselves, then it's easier for us to look at other people and be like, well, it's all right. I understand what they're going through because I've been through that. So I hope you enjoyed this message, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for watching. Blessed be.